Not all men. Not all men. Prove it. A website teaching men how to drug and women just got 62 million views in a month, supposedly 80 million a month before. If that doesn't turn your stomach, well, we have nothing to talk about. Women are angry. They should be. And when they say, if you're a not all men guy, then do something. I get the frustration behind that. Women don't feel safe, and with good reason. But I need to push back on the framing of this. Let's put it into context. There were 62 million views of a porn site. Within that site, there was a section that had 1,000 men as members, and those 1,000 men were drugging and f***ing their partners, or discussing drugging and their partners. That is horrific, absolutely. But what's happening, and this is what women are complaining about, is that men are differentiating about the numbers, and that's because men are using logic, whereas women are using emotion. Understandable. Okay, women have been through a lot in terms of abuse by men, and they are in fear of at some stage in their life, given the percentages. Understandable. But what men are saying is this: 1,000 men is bad enough. One man is bad enough having a site or being on a site. We get that. We get that. People should be upset about it. No doubt. No argument. But what's happening is that a number of women are not even looking at this article and are saying 62 million men, which it obviously isn't. And what they don't understand is why men are pushing back on the numbers. And I'll explain it to you very simply. Men do not appreciate being lumped in with a group. If it's 62 million men, that's about 3% of the population, the male population between the ages of, say, 18 and 60, 65. Even with those figures, that would mean that 97% of men weren't visiting this site. But the reality is that 1,000 men is 0.00004% of the male population between about 18 to 65. So that means virtually 100%, almost 100% of men on this planet did not visit that site. Acknowledging that isn't dismissing the horror. It's refusing to condemn an entire gender for the actions of the worst among them. And that, I think, is what men are pushing back against, because this figure of 62 million men is being used to beat men over the head. And what's happening from there is that women are demanding that men do something about it. And their answer to this problem is for men to treat this issue like women do, which is to talk about it. And so they're saying, get on social media, complain about this, talk about it, sit down with your male friends, do something about it. And to men, talking is not doing. And I hope you get that, because for women, it's about emotion and empathy and conversation. For men, it's about logic, justice, and action. And so if you're telling us that we should be doing some performative thing on social media, if you're telling us we should sit down with our friends who we're pretty sure are not rapists, that's possible they could be, but we're pretty sure if we know them for a long time, they're probably not. And even if they were, are they going to admit it? I understand they're getting us to call out, or they're asking us to call out about men saying negative things about women. The men that I hang around with don't do that, but I'm sure there are men that do that. So for me, doing that would be a waste of time. But again, it's women asking men to treat an issue the way women would treat it. And we're not women, we're men. So for us, logic, justice, action. And that is where the problem lies. We do not think that a performative action on social media or sitting down with our friends is going to actually achieve anything. And we think in terms of fixing the problem. Now, I don't know the complete answer to fixing the problem. And one practical thing you can do is, if you're American, is contact your senators. And I'll put the directions of what to do in the description box. And that will have much more effect in creating justice and having an effect on these ridiculous sites than all the talking in the world will have. And I know if you're a female, you're probably not going to understand where I'm coming from with this. And that's okay. The men generally will. But there will be some men out there that are trying to coddle female approval, and they will be doing what women say. And it's a pointless exercise, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe some good will come out of it, but I have my doubts. Women have got to understand that men do not want to audition for approval. And that's all this is. If men do what they say and get on social media and denounce this site, which I'm happy to do, it's a shocking site. If they denounce this site, And if they sit down with their friends and they do all the right things, then women will think that they are one of the good guys. I know you think we need to prove we're the good guys, but we already know we're the good guys. And we are not auditioning for your approval. If there's a problem or an issue, men will try and fix it, but not in a female way. And that's why I've put instructions in the description box. The reason that so many men are jacking up about this, I think, is because what is the point of trying to prove our innocence to a jury that will never acquit us? And that's you. In the early 2000s, my teams and I rescued 176 children from sex trafficking, some as young as 10 years old. We were in the media, so people knew about us. We were on the ground in Southeast Asia. And you know who showed up to help? Men, lots of them. You know who was largely absent? Women. Sure, they were supported from behind, but not there with us. I'm not saying that to score points. I'm saying it because this idea that men as a group are sitting on their hands while women suffer, it's not the full picture. Now, here's the mirror for you. When a woman falsely accuses a man of rape and destroys his life, his career, his family, his reputation, I don't hear women saying we need to do something about women. There's no collective guilt, no demand to prove they're not all women, just silence. And it's not just individual cases. Family courts around the world systematically favour mothers over fathers in custody disputes. It's well researched. Millions of dads are alienated from their children, not because they're bad fathers, but because the system was never built for them. Where's the collective outrage from women over that? Where's the we need to do something about this? There's no hashtag, no marches, just millions of men losing the kids in silence. The researcher Murray Strauss found that when you measure all acts of physical aggression in relationships, like pushing, slapping, throwing things, women initiate at roughly equal rates to men, sometimes slightly higher. Of course, the damage is higher from men because we tend to be stronger. And we know it's not all women either. But again, you never hear that phrase, just silence again. When the data shows violence flowing the other direction, the same voices demanding collective accountability over this website go quiet. Not because they're bad people, but because we've built a framework where only one direction of harm gets the megaphone. Now, the pain behind this outrage of these 62 million views is real. That website is a nightmare. It's a travesty and they should all go to jail. But collective guilt based on gender isn't accountability. It's tribalism. And it moves us further apart, not closer. Women online are demanding our action. What if every man posted something about it, told their friends, called for an inquiry? It still wouldn't be enough. Because it's not really about the 62 million views at all. It's about women's lived experience, which is real. But what they're really asking is for men to prove to women that they are the good guys. If you don't take any action, then you're not a good guy. And it's not possible to prove you're a good guy because no matter what men do, women see them as having the original sin of being born a toxic male. If you want to take action against this internet site, please do out of decency, but not because you're trying to prove you're a good guy. Refuse to audition. There's a practical, non-performative way to help that you can see in the description box. Real accountability looks like action, not outrage. I've done the action. I risked my life, my income, and my marriage to pull children out of sex trafficking. So before you tell me what men need to do, ask yourself, what have you done? What are you doing? And what the fuck have you risked other than an outraged post on social media? So let's go back to the original premise. If you're a man who has a problem with all men, you're the man all men is about. And people think this is some kind of checkmate. It's not. It's a trap disguised as an argument. If you disagree, that's proof you're guilty. If you stay silent, then it must be true. There is no answer you give that proves your innocence because you are never being asked a question. You are being handed a verdict. And here's how you know it doesn't hold up. Apply the same logic to any other group. A Muslim extremist blows up a bus. People are horrified. A Muslim says, that's awful. But not all Muslims are extremists. The response? If you're a Muslim who has a problem with all Muslims, you're the Muslim we're talking about. And if you want to prove you're not one of them, you better post about it, have conversations with your friends condemning it, and maybe we'll believe you're one of the good ones. A black man commits a violent crime. People are outraged. A black man says, that's horrible, but that's not all black men. The response? If you have a problem with all black men, you're the one we're talking about. And if you want to prove you're not a criminal, you'd better speak out. Educate your community. Confront other black men in order to perform your innocence, or we'll assume the worst. But let's take it directly to women. A woman makes a false rape accusation that destroys a man's life. Career gone, reputation gone, sometimes prison. Now imagine if the response was, yes, but not all women. What if I then said in response, all women need to take responsibility for this. If you're a woman who has a problem with all women, you're the woman we're talking about. And it's your duty to go educate other women about false accusations. Have those hard conversations with your girlfriends. Post about it publicly, or we'll assume you're part of the problem. I wonder how many women would rise to the occasion. You see how fast every single one of those becomes unacceptable? That's because it is unacceptable. Every single one of those would be called out as bigotry, and rightly so. The logic doesn't magically become valid just because you've applied it to men. Being offended by a blanket accusation that clearly doesn't apply to you isn't a confession, it's common sense. You don't want to be grouped with abusers because you're not. That's not guilt, that's dignity. And here's what actually bothers me. This argument doesn't just fail logically, it kills the conversation we need to have. The real question isn't whether all men are guilty. It's what's going wrong with the specific men who are doing harm. What's broken? What patterns led them there? You don't fix that by flattening an entire gender into one accusation. You fix it by getting specific. If your argument can't survive someone simply disagreeing with it, it was never a good argument. It was manipulative and a cage. Don't fall for it. Good men are defined by their actions. If you are a man and think this website sucks, as you should, then sure, do something about it, take action. But don't for once think that it will have any impact on a subset of women's views about you, because you'll just be performing innocence for people who will never acquit you.